The porcelain vase lay in pieces across my hardwood floor, its blue and white shards scattered like broken promises. 5 generations of Matthew's women had cherished it. My grandmother carried it across an ocean. My mother refused to sell it during the Depression. Now, it was destroyed at the feet of my 10-year-old grandson, Jason, his face twisted into that unsettling half-smile I'd come to dread. "Oops," he said, his voice flat, his eyes daring me to react. I stood frozen in my Victorian home's living room, the Boston suburbs quiet outside. My son, Daniel, barely glanced up from his phone. "It's just a vase, Mom," he said, as if it were nothing, as if I were nothing. My chest tightened. "It's not just a vase," I said, my voice shakier than I wanted. "Jason needs boundaries." At dinner, I pressed further. "This behavior isn't normal." Mrs. Peterson saw him throwing rocks at her cat. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, set her wine glass down with exaggerated care. "Not this again, Ellie. Boys will be boys." Her tone was sharp, dismissive. "That old bat needs glasses." Daniel, always dodging conflict, forced a smile. "Let's just enjoy dinner, okay?" I let it go, but the air felt heavy, like a storm brewing. That night, I carried my tea tray upstairs, each step a battle against my arthritis. 5 years ago, after my husband Richard's death, I'd invited Daniel's family to live upstairs, thinking it would bring us closer. Instead, my home had become a battlefield, and I was losing ground. At the top landing, a shadow moved. Jason emerged, his face pale in the dim hallway light. "Nobody believes you anyway," he whispered, his eyes cold, too old for a child. Before I could respond, I felt a sharp push against my back. Deliberate, forceful. The tea tray flew from my hands as I tumbled backward, each stare biting into my flesh. Pain seared through my wrist with a sickening crack. I hit the bottom, breathless, the world spinning. "Mom!" Daniel rushed from the kitchen, but his concern felt thin. Through tears, I gasped he pushed me. Jason pushed me on purpose. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic, Ellie. He says you tripped. Accidents happen at your age." I looked up, and there was Jason, peeking around the corner, that half-smile playing on his lips. "I know what happened," I insisted, cradling my shattered wrist. Daniel helped me up, his grip impatient. "Maybe this is a sign, Mom. We should consider other living arrangements, somewhere with professional care. You've been confused lately, imagining things." His words cut deeper than the fall. At the hospital, the cast on my wrist felt like a shackle, a reminder of my vulnerability. As they drove me home, a cold truth settled in, more painful than the break. My family wasn't just doubting me, they were conspiring against me. In their story, I was a confused old woman, an obstacle to what they saw as their inheritance. Back in my bedroom, I noticed small changes. My jewelry box slightly ajar, family photos rearranged, my leather journal, 40 years of memoirs, moved from desk to bookshelf. I wasn't losing my mind. They were gaslighting me. Daniel appeared in my doorway, his concern a mask. "Need anything, Mom?" "I'm fine," I lied, the words bitter. After he left, I spotted an assisted living brochure tucked under yesterday's newspaper. Subtle but deliberate. My hands shook, not from age, but from betrayal. They weren't just taking my things, they were rewriting my reality, pushing me toward a life I didn't choose. I called Beatrice, my oldest friend, who'd embraced technology with a fervor I'd always found amusing. "They think I'm going senile," I whispered, afraid of being overheard in my own home. "I'm coming tomorrow," she said, her voice steady. "We'll figure this out." That night, I lay awake, the cast heavy, my mind racing. The vase, the push, the brochure, they weren't accidents. They were a campaign. But I wasn't done yet. Eleanor Matthews, widow, professor, mother, grandmother, still had a fight left in her. I just didn't know how to start. The morning after my call to Beatrice, I woke to the ache in my wrist and the heavier weight of betrayal. My Victorian home, once a sanctuary, felt like a stage where I played the role of a fading matriarch. The cast on my arm itched, a reminder of Jason's push and Vanessa's smirk. "Don't be so dramatic, Ellie." I shuffled to my desk where my journal lay, its pages a lifeline to the truth they tried to erase. I wasn't senile. I wasn't imagining things. But I needed proof. Beatrice arrived just after 10, her silver hair pulled back, her eyes sharp with purpose. She carried a canvas bag that looked innocuous, vintage clock, bookend, small picture frame, but her grin told me otherwise. Military grade cameras, she whispered, her voice gleeful. My nephew works in security. My hands trembled not from arthritis, but from the weight of what we were about to do. We placed the devices strategically, one in my bedroom, one in the living room, one near the staircase. Each click felt like a step toward reclaiming my voice. That night, I barely slept, the cast heavy, my mind replaying Jason's cold whisper, "Nobody believes you anyway." The next morning, Beatrice set up a secure tablet to review the footage. I braced myself, unsure what I'd see. At dawn, Jason slipped into my room, his movements practiced, targeting my jewelry box. His small fingers lifted my sapphire earrings, Richard's last Christmas gift before cancer took him. My breath caught not at the theft, but at what came next. Hours later, the kitchen camera showed Vanessa examining the earrings, nodding approvingly. "Good eyes, sweetie," she said, ruffling Jason's hair. "These are worth at least $1,000. She pocketed them, her smile casual, as if stealing from me were routine. My chest tightened, the betrayal sharper than the stair's edge. Over the next week, the cameras revealed a campaign. Jason rifling through my drawers, taking sentimental trinkets, Daniel accidentally spilling coffee on my manuscript, 40 years of research on Victorian women poets, Vanessa moving my heart medication, then claiming I'd misplaced it. The final blow came during Sunday brunch with their friends. Jason had brought his classroom's pet hamster for the weekend. In my bathroom, the camera caught him holding the creature underwater, his expression curious, not cruel, as if death were an experiment. When it stopped moving, Vanessa helped him dispose of it. "We'll tell Mrs. Evans it escaped," she said calmly. "These things happen." My stomach churned. This wasn't just theft, it was a systematic dismantling of my dignity. That night, I overheard them through my cracked door. "The house would sell for $1.2 million in this market," Vanessa whispered. "Plus her savings and Jason's college fund. $350,000 now," Daniel added. "She won't need it in a nursing home." I closed my eyes, a strange calm settling over me. The Ellie they knew, widow, professor, mother, was dying, but someone new was rising, someone with nothing left to lose. At my next appointment, Dr. Sheldon examined my healing wrist. "The pain still bothers you?" she asked, her keen eyes searching. I hesitated, tempted to spill everything: Jason's cruelty, Vanessa's theft, Daniel's indifference. But without proof, I'd sound like the confused old woman they painted me as. "I'm fine," I said, the lie automatic. As I gathered my purse, she handed me a business card. "Caroline Winters, social worker. Specializes in elder rights." I started to protest, but she cut in gently. "Just take it. Sometimes talking helps." The card burned in my pocket, a spark of possibility. 3 days later, Vanessa helpfully suggested I sign power of attorney to Daniel. I smiled, nodding vaguely, but inside I was seething. I called Caroline that afternoon, and she invited me to her office, a warm space with plants and soft chairs. "Elder abuse takes many forms," she said, her voice matter of fact. "Financial exploitation is more common than physical." I protested weakly, "I'm not being abused." Her smile was kind but knowing. "Then why are you here, Eleanor?" The question broke me. The story poured out: Jason's push, Vanessa's gaslighting, Daniel's betrayal, the cameras catching their theft. "I've lost everything," I said, tears falling. "My dignity, my family, my home." Caroline leaned forward. "Not yet. You haven't." A voice came from the doorway, strong and clear. "Eleanor, this is Martha Sullivan," Caroline said, introducing a silver-haired woman with impeccable posture. "She leads our support group." Martha sat beside me, taking my trembling hands. 2 years ago, my son tried to commit me to a memory care facility for refusing to sell my beach house to fund his failing business, she said. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice small. Her smile was fierce. "I reminded them age isn't a disease." Being underestimated is temporary. For the first time in weeks, I felt something stir, not hope yet, but its dangerous cousin, possibility. The morning light filtered through my bedroom curtains, glinting off the hidden camera in the vintage clock Beatrice had placed. My journal, now a ledger of betrayal, lay open on my desk, its pages filled with dates, thefts, and Vanessa's lies. The cast on my wrist itched, a reminder of Jason's push, but the deeper ache was knowing my family saw me as a means to an end. $1.2 million for the house, $350,000 from Jason's college fund. I wasn't losing my mind. I was finding my fight. Martha's words echoed from our first meeting. Being underestimated is temporary. Her support group at Caroline's office had stunned me. Educated men and women, stripped of agency by their own families. I wasn't alone, but that didn't soften the sting. It sharpened my resolve. Martha introduced me to George Harrington, a silver-haired attorney specializing in elder law. We met in his oak-paneled office, surrounded by law books and quiet competence. I slid my journal, surveillance footage, and photos of stolen items across his desk. "They're gaslighting me," I said, pushing me toward a nursing home. George nodded, scanning my evidence. "Your case is common, Eleanor, but your documentation is uncommonly strong. The college fund is key." I explained how James, my first husband, established it for Daniel, and Richard, my second, kept contributing. Now, at $350,000, I was the sole trustee. George leaned forward. "As trustee, you have latitude over its use for educational purposes." "They don't know that." A spark flared, not hope, but possibility. "They think I'm deteriorating," I said, pointing to the assisted living brochures Vanessa left lying around. "Perfect," George replied. "We'll use their assumptions. Strategic compliance." The plan was elegant. I'd play the role they expected, forgetful, frail, confused, lulling them into false confidence. Martha, over coffee at her house, coached me. Let them think they're winning. People reveal themselves when they're smug. I practiced at breakfast, forgetting the day of the week. Vanessa smirked, and Daniel's eyes flicked away, relieved. "Mom's getting worse." I overheard him tell her that night. "Maybe we should accelerate our timeline." Their timeline. My opening. I met Thomas Bradley, my financial advisor of 20 years, at the bank. "Someone's been trying to access your accounts, Eleanor," he said, his face grave. "Using your social security number, claiming power of attorney." "My son," I said, the words ash in my mouth. Thomas's expression hardened. We denied access. Under George's guidance, I began restructuring my assets. Subtle moves, nothing to raise alarms. I changed account passwords, flagged unauthorized access, and moved small sums to secure accounts. At home, I leaned into my role. When Vanessa suggested signing routine paperwork, I smiled vaguely, promising to review it later. When Daniel proposed selling my antiques to simplify my life, I nodded as if considering it. "You're making it too easy, Mom," Daniel said, suspicion flickering. "I'm just tired of fighting," I replied, infusing my voice with defeat. His brief guilt vanished, replaced by resolve. I saw it then, the moral calculus of a man justifying betrayal. That night, Jason escalated. I reached for my heart medication, but the bottle was empty. He appeared in my doorway, dangling the pills. "Old people take too many drugs," he said, smirking. "Mom says so." "Say please again, like you're begging." His eyes gleamed, savoring my fear. "Jason, please," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. He tossed the bottle at my feet and left. That moment crystallized everything. This wasn't just about money or my house. It was about destroying me. Jason's cruelty, Vanessa's manipulation, Daniel's indifference. They were dismantling my dignity, piece by piece. I stared at an old photo from my teaching days, a confident professor commanding a lecture hall. That woman wasn't gone. I called Martha. "It's time," I said. "They've escalated." Her reply was firm, "We're ready." "Are you?" The next morning, over breakfast, Jason's voice cut through the clink of dishes. "Grandma, when are you going to die?" The kitchen fell silent. Daniel scolded weakly, "That's not appropriate." Vanessa smirked, buttering her toast. He's just curious. Kids are inquisitive about life cycles. I smiled, channeling George's strategy. I don't know, sweetheart. Why do you ask? Jason's reply was blunt. Dad says we can't turn this place into a gaming room until you're gone. Daniel's mask slipped, shock, then anger, quickly masked by a laugh. Kids misunderstand everything. But he didn't deny it. That afternoon, I began moving my most precious possessions to Martha's house with Beatrice's help. Family photos, journals, remaining jewelry. Each item was a piece of myself I refused to let them take. I wasn't just protecting things, I was protecting Eleanor Matthews. As I packed, I found a photo of Daniel as a boy, smiling beside James. I'd sacrificed everything for him after his father's death, working 2 jobs to fund his education. Now he was trading my life for a payout. But I wasn't defeated. I was awake. The morning light spilled through my bedroom window, glinting off the hidden camera in Beatrice's vintage clock. My journal, now a catalog of my family's betrayal, sat locked in a drawer, its pages detailing Jason's thefts, Vanessa's manipulation, and Daniel's indifference. The $350,000 college fund, my house worth $1.2 million. They thought it was theirs, but I was the trustee, the owner, the one they underestimated. With George's legal strategy and Martha's fierce encouragement, I was ready to turn their confidence against them. I began playing the role they'd scripted for me, a frail, forgetful old woman. At breakfast, I forgot Jason's school event, my voice wavering. Vanessa's eyes gleamed with satisfaction and Daniel's shoulders relaxed. Mom's getting worse. I overheard him tell her later, their voices low but clear through my cracked door. We should accelerate our timeline. Their words were my signal. I planted a fabricated bank statement on my desk, showing a $50,000 withdrawal to an unnamed account, then left for a therapy appointment, a meeting with George and his financial team. In George's oak-paneled office, I signed papers transferring Jason's college fund, $350,000, into the Second Chances Foundation, a charity for bullying victims and seniors pursuing education. This is irrevocable, George said, sliding the documents across his desk. They can't touch it. My hand trembled not from doubt, but from the weight of the act. This wasn't just about money, it was my declaration of independence. I signed, each stroke a refusal to be erased. Back home, the bank statement was gone, as expected. That night, I heard Vanessa and Daniel arguing upstairs. How could she withdraw that much without us knowing? Vanessa hissed. The bank won't tell me anything, Daniel replied. They say I don't have authorization. I lay in bed, a strange calm settling over me. They were chasing shadows I'd created, revealing their greed. The cameras caught it all, Vanessa rifling through my desk, Daniel making frantic calls to the bank, Jason smashing a family photo in a tantrum. The next morning, Vanessa couldn't contain herself. Ellie, we noticed unusual activity in your accounts, she said, her concern fake. Large withdrawals. We're worried someone's taking advantage. I blinked, feigning confusion. Withdrawals? I don't remember. Daniel jumped in, relief in his voice. Maybe I should manage your finances for safety. I frowned, as if struggling. But I moved some money recently. Jason's college fund to an educational foundation. Isn't that lovely? The room went still. Vanessa's coffee cup hit the table with a sharp clink. What about Jason's college fund? Her voice was ice. I donated it, I said simply, to help bullying victims and seniors. It's what James and Richard would have wanted. Daniel paled, and Vanessa's face twisted with barely contained fury. That money was for Jason's education, she snapped. And it still is, I replied calmly. Just not only his. The Second Chances Foundation will help many students. Jason, silent until now, erupted. You ruined everything. You stupid old woman, he screamed. It was my money. I stood, meeting his eyes. No, Jason. It was a gift you lost through your actions. Now, excuse me, I have a bag to pack. I left them stunned, retreating to my room where a small suitcase waited, already half packed with essentials. I wasn't leaving yet, but the gesture was a line in the sand. That afternoon, I found disturbing papers in a forgotten drawer, letters Daniel wrote to Richard years ago, claiming I was controlling, unsupportive. Lies. I'd worked 2 jobs after James's death to put him through college. Worse were Jason's medical records, revealing a conduct disorder diagnosis. Doctors had urged therapy, but Vanessa refused, calling it a stigma. The cameras caught her dismissing Jason's destruction of my photos. Kids will be kids. I sent the footage to Caroline, who was compiling a dossier on their neglect and emotional abuse. I met Caroline secretly at her office. What if I'm wrong? I asked, my voice shaking. What if they care in their own way? She laid out our evidence, videos, journal entries, medical records. Love is shown through actions, not words. You deserve dignity, Ellie. Her words steadied me. I reconnected with Professor Walter Collins, my old colleague, who was outraged to learn Daniel had told everyone I'd chosen to be reclusive. We'll help, he promised, rallying our academic circle. Vanessa grew bolder, pushing me to sign property transfer documents. Why complicate things? She snapped when I asked to consult an attorney. Don't you trust your son? Caroline, posing as my elderly friend, was present. I looked at Vanessa calmly. Trust is a two-way street, dear, and that road's been closed for some time. Her shock was palpable. I dropped the mask, just for a moment, and she saw I wasn't the frail woman she'd counted on. The morning after I revealed the college funds transfer, my Victorian home buzzed with tension. Vanessa's coffee cup still sat where she'd slammed it down, a faint ring staining the table. My journal, locked in a safe at Martha's, held every detail of their betrayal, Jason's thefts, Vanessa's manipulation, Daniel's complicity. The cameras Beatrice installed caught it all, from Vanessa pocketing my sapphire earrings to Jason breaking family photos. I'd played their game of frail confusion, but now it was time to move. I planted another fabricated bank statement on my desk, this one showing a $75,000 transfer to a personal account. Then I left for a doctor's appointment, a meeting with George and Caroline. In George's office, we finalized the next phase. The Second Chances Foundation is secure, he said, handing me a confirmation. The house is still yours, and we've flagged unauthorized access attempts on your accounts. I nodded. My wrist cast a reminder of Jason's push. What's next? I asked. George's eyes were steady. You leave. Let them scramble. That evening, I packed the last of my essentials. Photos, journals, Richard's pearl necklace, already safe at Martha's. I left a note on my desk. Need time to think. Don't contact me. At dawn, I slipped out, Beatrice waiting in her car. We drove to a small apartment she'd arranged 2 towns over, a quiet space with a view of maples. You're safe here, she said, setting up the tablet to monitor my home's cameras. I exhaled, the weight of my old life lifting, replaced by a sharp clarity. I wasn't running, I was repositioning. The cameras revealed chaos. Vanessa tore through my office, searching for financial documents, cursing when she found nothing. Daniel made frantic calls to the bank, only to learn the passwords had changed and unauthorized attempts were flagged. Jason, unsupervised, invited friends for a destructive party, trashing my living room. Real estate agents visited, but without my signature, no sale could proceed. Their desperation was my leverage, exactly as George predicted. A week later, George sent a formal letter to Daniel and Vanessa, stating they'd violated our verbal housing agreement and had 60 days to vacate or face eviction and elder abuse charges. The cameras caught Vanessa's rage. She smashed a lamp, screaming, while Daniel slumped, defeated. Neighbors, tipped off by Professor Collins, began whispering about their behavior. My story, discreetly shared by my academic circle, spread through Boston social networks, isolating them further. Daniel, desperate, reported me as a confused, missing elderly person to the police, hoping to drag me back under their control. It backfired. George delivered an envelope to Detective Sarah Jenkins containing surveillance footage of the stair incident, Jason's thefts, and Vanessa's manipulation, plus financial and medical records proving my competence. Sarah visited me at the apartment, not to return me, but to confirm my safety. You've built a strong case, she said, her voice kind but firm. We're investigating. I sent 3 letters simultaneously, one to Daniel and Vanessa, an ultimatum to vacate or face charges, one to Jason's school, detailing his conduct disorder and the hamster incident, requesting a psychological evaluation, and one to Daniel's company ethics board, questioning his use of my academic work in a marketing campaign without credit. The fallout was swift. Daniel faced a disciplinary meeting at work. Jason's school mandated an evaluation for his continued enrollment. Vanessa's real estate business faltered as clients learned of her actions. Vanessa tried a new tactic, arranging a lunch through mutual contacts, posing as a peacemaker. In a crowded restaurant, she alternated between tears and veiled threats. Destroying our family won't bring you dignity, she said. Think of your reputation when people hear you abandon Jason. I sipped my tea unmoved. I didn't destroy anything, Vanessa. I stopped rebuilding what you demolished. As for my reputation, perhaps you should consider yours. She offered to return Jason's stolen items and get him therapy if I dropped the eviction. I leaned forward. Promises require trust, and some vases, once broken, can't be glued back together. Daniel's letter arrived days later, admitting partial fault but blaming Vanessa's influence. Growing up isn't optional, I wrote back. It happens when you face consequences, not avoid them. Their arguments grew louder, audible to neighbors. Jason, left unchecked, was suspended from school for another incident. I watched from a distance, safe in my apartment, supported by Martha, Caroline, and Beatrice. But a question gnawed at me. Was this justice or revenge? The line was blurring, and I wasn't sure I liked who I saw in the mirror. The maples outside my apartment glowed red in the autumn light, their leaves a quiet reminder of change. 3 months after the eviction, my Victorian home was mine again, emptied of Daniel, Vanessa, and Jason's chaos. The Second Chances Foundation thrived, its $350,000 seed, once Jason's college fund, now supporting bullying victims and seniors pursuing education. The Elder Protection Unit's investigation had closed, with charges pending against Vanessa for elder fraud and forgery. I'd reclaimed my dignity, but the victory felt hollow, shadowed by the loss of my family. I stood in my renovated home, now painted in soft blues, and wondered, was this justice, or had I crossed into revenge? Caroline, now a trusted friend, met me in my new writing studio, a former bedroom where I'd resumed my manuscript on Victorian women poets. You didn't destroy your family, Ellie, she said, her voice steady. You stopped them from destroying you. Her words eased the knot in my chest. A letter from Jason arrived that week, written under his therapist's guidance. It was hesitant, admitting the stair incident and thefts, not emotional but honest. Among the returned items was my mother's pearl necklace, a fragile thread to the past. I didn't forgive him, not yet, but I saw a flicker of possibility. I threw myself into the Second Chances Foundation, working with Professor Collins to expand its programs. We awarded 10 scholarships, including one to Jason, evaluated anonymously for his therapeutic progress. His conduct disorder diagnosis required lifelong work, but intervention had begun. Vanessa, humiliated as her real estate business crumbled, reluctantly agreed to his therapy. Daniel, facing probation at work, started therapy too, unraveling his complicity in Vanessa's schemes. Their divorce was finalized, and he gained primary custody of Jason, a small step toward accountability. 18 months after the stair incident, I stood in a university auditorium, preparing to lecture as a visiting professor on elder advocacy. Caroline had arranged it, believing my story could teach beyond textbooks. Dignity isn't diminished by age, I began, facing 36 graduate students. But society often equates gray hair with weakness, creating vulnerabilities exploited by those closest to us. I shared research and my journey without naming Jason or Daniel, earning nods and questions. Martha, elegant in midnight blue, beamed from the audience, her health fragile but her spirit fierce. Daniel slipped into the back row, his presence quiet but deliberate. After the lecture, he approached. "That was incredible, Mom," he said. "You turned pain into purpose." I thanked him, cautious but touched. "How's Jason?" I asked. "Struggling but improving," he said. "Therapy's helping his impulse control. It's progress by proxy. Doing right for practical reasons, not emotional ones. I nodded, accepting the reality of Jason's limits. Our relationship was a work in progress, bounded by careful respect, not blind trust. At a foundation board meeting, Collins reported our success. 12 students supported, corporate partnerships growing, an endowment ensuring longevity. That evening, Martha hosted a dinner, my chosen family around her table: Caroline, Beatrice, George, and his wife, Collins. To Eleanor, Martha toasted, whose third act is her most powerful. I raised my glass, reflecting on the scars, physical from the fall, emotional from betrayal. Trust was conditional now, but I was stronger, more discerning, purposeful. Later, alone in my home, I stood at my bedroom window, gazing at the garden I'd replanted. Spring bulbs pushed through the soil, defiant against the cold. A letter from Daniel arrived, more sincere, acknowledging his failures without excuses. He asked for a supervised meeting with Jason and his therapist, Dr. Winters. I agreed, meeting them in her office. Jason, taller at 11, read an accountability statement, admitting the stair incident and thefts, his voice flat but precise. I'm working to understand why I hurt people, he said, folding the paper with care. Dr. Winters guided us, structured and boundaried. Jason's developing cognitive empathy, she explained later. Emotional empathy may always be limited, but he's learning to act ethically. I met Jason's eyes. Your choices now matter more than your mistakes, I said. He blinked, calculating. But you're not giving back the college money. I smiled faintly. It's helping students like you. Earn a scholarship through merit, and you'll have a chance. For the first time, he looked like a child facing a challenge, not a demand. 6 months later, I accepted the Maxwell Foundation Community Leadership Award for the Second Chances Foundation. Flashbulbs popped as I held the crystal trophy. My chosen family, Martha, Caroline, Beatrice, Collins, cheering. Daniel attended, standing quietly at the back. I'm proud of you, Mom, he said afterward. Dad and Richard would be, too. His words touched me, not forgiveness, but a step toward possibility. I was home, not just in my house, but in myself, Eleanor Matthews, survivor, advocate, whole.